40-something gamers, me and my boy Sharon, friends back since 1994. We gonna get into it. So today we got some heavy hitters today. We gonna talk about 3D fighters, the first and the most hitting when they first came out, Virtual Fighter versus Tekken. Then we gonna talk about the 2D fighters, two powerhouses, SNK versus Capcom. So let's first start with Tekken versus Virtual Fighter. Who you got?
Versus Virtual Fighter? Ooh, Tekken. I'm gonna go with Tekken.
Oh, you got Tekken. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm gonna go Tekken. But I will say back in the day, you remember in the 1990s around this time. So we'll say around 95, 94, that transition, there was a transition being made from 2D to 3D. And of course, Sega back in the day, you gotta realize, like, Sega had the arcades on lockdown, Hang On, Afterburn, the list goes on, but they also had Virtual Racer. And then 3D was coming into the fold. You remember that game, Hard Driving? So the first time I saw a 3D fighter was Virtual Fighter. And when I first saw it, I was like, oh my goodness, this is it. So that was my first initial into the introduction. Fast forward, Virtual Fighter 2 comes out, the Sega Saturn comes out, and the PlayStation came out. I'm Team Sega for life, but everybody had the PlayStation. And I'm not gonna lie, one for one, I say that Namco's Tekken was it. Like it was a phenomenon. I think it had more characters, it had more flair. It kind of had like that. The Last Dragon? You had the glow.
Yeah.
And it was just a better game. To me, it was more flashy, but Virtual Fighter was more. It was the first. And then it was more technical. And then we had some more 2D fighters, but those were the heavy hitters. I remember Battle Arena Toshinden, and then what was wasn't there another one?
Man.
Like Fighting Vipers or something like that?
Yeah, I never played that one, though. There were so many back then. But I would say Virtual Fighter did do their thing. I remember seeing that for the first time in the arcade and being really impressed with the looks and the music. And although Tekken's fun, don't get me wrong, I think Virtual Fighter had a cleaner look to it.
Yeah.
It didn't look as pixelated. It looked more polygonal, in which Tekken looked the same. But for some reason, to me, Virtual Fighter had cleaner backgrounds.
Yeah. And then Virtual Fighter was more technical. You had the one guy that had the Brazilian like fighting style. I think their styles were more technical. You could grab Virtual Fighter was more technical. You had the Brazilian guy with the dreadlocks. He was doing I can't name. And if any of you guys can name the fighting style,
that was Eddie. He was in Tekken. Yeah, I think he came around. He came around in 3.
It was the brother in Virtual Fighter. Remember, he had the dreadlocks. He had the dreadlocks and the ponytail, and he's kind of like. We'll show the video game footage.
He was using capoeira?
Yeah, he was using that style, and then you could grab and boom. But Tekken, the draw for me for Tekken was you can just punch buttons.
Yeah.
You could just, but one thing that I want to bring up, man, is they had shared DNA. So the two series both have the same creator. Shishi Ishii was the director and designer of the original Virtual Fighter. He left Sega to direct the first 2 Tekken games for Namco. Mm-hmm. So that's why it had the same floaty thing, same floaty feeling. And then also with Virtual Fighter, been more technical. You could knock the people out of the arena.
Yeah.
And like you said, the background visuals were more crisp, but Tekken had more of that. It was more flashy. I mean, you could hit people lightning. They had the Bruce Lee character.
Yeah. Tekken was just straight raw, man. Yeah. Especially when it got to the second game. Yeah.
And then in Sega true fashion around this time, Sega had all this hardware. You had the 32X, you had the Sega CD, you had the regular Sega Genesis. So they did drop Virtual Fighter. So this was in between the 32X and then the Sega Saturn. So they did drop a Virtual Fighter game. However, they dropped the ball with this one. They did what they did with Daytona USA. They rushed it. It was too pixelated. The 32X version, it was impressive, but it wasn't that impressive. So Sega dropped the ball with the Virtual Fighters. So they ended up having to make a Virtual Fighter remix as a I'm sorry. And people that had the Sega Saturn at the time, they got the free Virtual Fighter remix, which was better. So then we'll talk about, to me, okay, we established that Tekken was better. However, I will say that Virtual Fighter 2 was a good one. You remember it had the old man that kind of did like the break dancing.
Yeah.
And then they had the one guy, he had the style like this,
His name was Lion. I used to play with him.
lion.
Yeah.
And then you remember there was a stage where you were fighting the old dude and you were kind of like on a floating platform and then you go under a bridge. The visuals were amazing. So
Yeah.
this was the time that I bought my Sega Saturn and I got Virtual Fighter 2. And I must say, it was even, I think it was even like 30 or 60 frames per second. I will go back and look. But I was impressed. I was pretty impressed to go from, luckily I didn't get the Virtual Fighter 1, but I did get the disappointing Daytona USA, but Virtual Fighter 2 was good. And how do you feel they did as far as from platform to console, arcade to console?
Well, see, I never actually played Virtua Fighter 2 on the Sega Saturn. I don't played it in the arcade.
Okay.
But
But what about,
I'm trying to remember if I played the first one. I played the first one on Sega Genesis, which,
okay.
they limited because they can't, like, the screen's not going to spin and do everything, the hardware limitations. But now I would say, like, playing them in the arcade, they were very impressive. Virtua Fighter was a good game, along with, like, all the virtual games they were making back then, like with the racing and everything. And, next to the Tekken games, like, I think the Sega, I don't know, it's something about Sega and the Millennium. It just clicked. About that time frame, 'cause they just had some pretty visual games.
Yeah. Because then they had like, in the beginning, like you said, they had Virtual Cop. Like they dug into the 3D situation.
Yeah.
What about, because I remember you had the PlayStation. I got the Sega Saturn much later on.
Mm-hmm.
What did you ever play Tekken on the PlayStation?
Yes. Yeah. I played, I want to say I have Tekken 5.
Okay.
And it was on PlayStation 2.
Okay.
And I thought that was a really good game. I would still play that game to this day. It has a good replay value. Now, I will say the thing about the Tekken games, because like you got back to you said that, well, you just said all you had to do is just mash buttons on those games. At that point when those games came out, I stopped trying to learn how to maneuver, and I just started just spam button mashing. It's not like Street Fighter, like when you put in a certain code and you throw a fireball or you do a hurricane kick.
Yeah.
Now you can push whatever you want, and you're just gonna pull off some combination.
Yeah.
And I was
then
like,
it would be.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was like, I would look at that. I would look at that list, that combination. I'd be like, I'm not learning that.
Yeah. And then the cool thing was, like, I would just have to learn which one was a quick punch to get them, to stun them, and which one was a powerful punch or kick to do what they need to do. Those were the two things that I needed to know. And I guess that was kind of like the differentiator for me between Virtual Fighter and Tekken. Virtual Fighter was a little bit more technical. You kind of had to have a little bit of a method to the madness, to whereas Tekken, you could just go all in. Okay, quick punch, powerful kick. We got this. And I want to say, when I was in the Navy, when I first joined the Navy and then going to air traffic control school in Pensacola, a lot of my colleagues had PlayStation. So that's how I was introduced to Tekken. And I will say that Tekken's, as far as comparing to the arcade, to the actual console, it was pretty impressive. And I think by the time we got to Tekken 3, I was like, whoa, like, okay, you guys are doing your thing. Whereas with the Sega Saturn, they drop the ball with one. They do the remix. The remix is like, okay, it's a 1-for-1. They add some things to it. But then Virtual Fighter 3 or 2, it was like, damn, this is really, you really couldn't tell unless now, they do a comparison. The technical difference is in the background is 3D in the arcade. And then the background for the Sega Saturn, they just made it 2D. And then the one where you're fighting on the floating platform, you're not on the floating platform in the Sega Saturn version. So, but I mean, it was good. I mean, both of them were good. And it's funny that they both share the same creator. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just, if you want to get, from my perspective, we both said that Tekken is it, but Virtual Fighter was the first of its kind, the first time that you've seen it. And as always around this period, the console, the arcades would always be just a little bit more than the consoles.
Yeah.
So I guess we both say Tekken gets our thumbs up.
Yeah.
So the next one, the one I know, the one you know real well. I mean, my man is all about the fighting games. We're going to talk SNK versus Capcom. What are your thoughts, man? What are your thoughts on the history? Where are you going with this? Because I want to say I was one team until later on in life I got to discover, because I couldn't afford the Neo Geo. As I'm older, I appreciate what Neo Geo brought.
Yeah, SNK versus Capcom, man. It's like taking like Street Fighter versus King of Fighters. Because the Neo Geo, those are the games, like the King of Fighter games, that nobody could afford. I mean, and with say Street Fighter, we were all pretty much versed with Ryu, and like now they're mixing Mega Man and the Capcom characters and the Street Fighter characters, and now they're taking the Neo Geo characters, and they're just making this great big party. So like now you're getting the best of both worlds. And I still play SNK versus Capcom. It's just a great game.
So I want to say in the beginning, before they even did the collaborations, it was my co-host right here talking. So in the beginning, we didn't have an SNK versus Capcom, but it was the beat 'em ups.
Yeah.
Street Fighter first came out, and Street Fighter had it on lock. So Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter came out as whatever. Street Fighter 2 came out, 6-game button. It dominated, right? So I want to say that Street Fighter started it. Street Fighter 2 started it, but SNK perfected it. Because then once Street Fighter 2 came out, we had the Art of Fighting. What else did we have? Like SNK just started World Heroes. They just started making fighting games.
Fatal Fury.
Fatal Fury.
Yeah.
And it was just like, wow. At the time, I was all in on Street Fighter. But as we look now, I want to say Capcom started it. Street Fighter, SNK perfected it. I mean, we can go on and on. Like I was playing, I was playing King of Fighters '97 the other day, and just the artwork is fluid, the background is fluid. I think that's where Neo Geo like built a niche for that, along with Metal Slug. And like I said, back in the day, we weren't fortunate to afford a Neo Geo. Like when I was younger, I didn't know what the draw was for Neo Geo, because the 16-bit was just close enough with the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. You just didn't care. But now with emulators, you're like, holy crap, this is one for the arcade. Like, so in the beginning, I give it to Capcom. But as far as now, older me and actually having emulators to look at the fighting games, we got to admit, man, we talk about it all the time. Samurai Showdown. Hands down.
That was my jam.
And then even with the art, go ahead.
I said that's my jam. I still play Samurai Showdown to this day.
Even with the Art of Fighting, man, when they getting like busted up in the face, zoom in, zoom out. So yeah, man. What are your thoughts, man? Just based on just the history and then into now.
I mean, we're going back like to the Samurai Showdown games and the King of Fighter games, like with the Neo Geo. They used to have these games on the big screens in the arcade. That was my first big screen experience. And now they're taking like, I remember seeing like the Marvel versus Capcoms, and they would have those. No, wait, I'm sorry. Let me take it back. No, there was a Marvel versus Capcom, because it came to Dreamcast. And I believe I remember playing that in the arcade. And now we have like the SNK versus Capcom. And I was like, it's really cool that they did the crossover, so like you have like all those characters that you used to. Because I mean, I would play with Terry Bogard and Andy Bogard, and then Ryu, and then also the fact that you can mix them up. Like you don't have to choose the teams that they have. You can choose take Chun-Li, and you could take Terry Bogard, and you could take this other character, and you could do a 3-on-3. And while you're also fighting and playing that game, if like they got your character in a hole, you push this button and this guy jumps in, and it knocks them off, and then it gets really crazy and very psychedelic when you put in the other code, and all of a sudden the screen if you have epilepsy, you probably can't play this game.
Yeah.
But the screen starts glittering, and you start seeing like outer space, and combo system is just going off, and it's wow.
Yeah. And then we talk about, so let's talk about what was the dream thing, because they said, I just looked this up, in 1999, this is when they signed the deal, SNK and Capcom, to do the rivalries due to the decline of the 2D fighting games. So in 1999, we already know, so around that time, that's what Dreamcast, we're more into 3D, more
was coming in.
Yeah, 3D more realistic. So the 2D fighters are, and this is brilliant what they did. But I want to talk about the characters. Do you remember the one character, I think she was in Art of Fighting, or maybe King of Fighters. She had like these fans, man. She had these fans that, Yes.
Yeah, she was a. I know you're talking about. She came from
Yeah.
Fatal Fury.
Yeah,
Part
she
2.
had the fans and like, like I like that they mash them up because I like you talk about Fatal Fury. I like the two brothers, the one that throws his hat, after he
Yes.
wins and stuff like that.
Terry Bogard.
Yeah, the Bogart brothers. So it was just like, I feel like from my opinion, I feel like Capcom just kept using the Street Fighter 2 recipe.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while I got lost in the alphas and all this other thing. And it's like, man, just give me some sequels. You know what I'm saying? They kept using the same formula. SNK just kept expanding it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I will say, even though I'm not good at it, the visuals on Samurai Showdown are just, watching people bleed out and zoom in and zoom out. But again, like I was all in with Team Capcom. For one, we got the Capcom games on the Super Nintendo. We got the Capcom games on the Sega Genesis. But then we did get SNK, I think, what was it, Fatal Fury. We did finally get, and then we finally got the Art of Fighting, and then we finally got Samurai Showdown. But Neo Geo is, you remember, man, going to the Neo Geo. You guys had to be there. You had to see the console. You had to, even the music, everything was high. Everything was done to the T, but we couldn't get that experience. And I think, go ahead.
I will say that the Sega Genesis had a really solid port of Samurai Showdown. Granted, the screen didn't zoom in and out. It still did really well. I feel like the Super Nintendo had very good solid ports of the Art of Fighting and Fatal Fury. Honestly, that was as close as we was getting, unless you had about $600 to juke out on a Neo Geo system, and we were kids at that time, so our parents weren't getting that.
Yep. And like you said, man, the Nintendo and Sega, when Street Fighter 2 came out, Super Nintendo, it came out first. I was hating a little bit, but then Sega Genesis got it. It was good. It was good to go. I want to say we never seen, and this is because of the memory, and you can speak to this too. Once these powerhouses came to the PlayStation and to the Sega Saturn, even then, mind you, these are 16-bit games, but we're in the 32-bit era. You still needed more memory. You still lost a little bit. You still had low times. This is how powerful these games were.
Yeah, I remember I bought Street Fighter 2 collection for the PlayStation, and Street Fighter's 2 to 3 round game. And it'd have about a good 15-second load time, before the game started up, between each round and everything. And it would kind of slow down, like, it kind of takes the momentum. But yeah, once we got to the era that we're in now, like there's no load time when it comes to these games.
So I'm gonna ask you this question: what team were you? Were you SNK or were you Team Capcom in the beginning? And does it still hold true now, 30 years some odd after the?
As much as I love SNK, I have to say I'm Team Capcom because Street Fighter, and and I've always liked the Ghouls and Ghosts series, and Capcom, like Konami, like SNK is a solid house.
Yeah,
they're still making out great games today. So I have to say I'm Team Capcom when it comes to that one.
Okay, yeah, because Capcom has the IPs, but I want to say as far as the fighters go, I was Team Capcom because they had the Street Fighter, they had Dark Warriors, even that IP was. Darkstalkers, even that IP was like, I'm like, you got fighting games, but with Dracula and Frankenstein and all this. But as an older person and as being able to actually get the emulators and being able to see the games I couldn't afford, like King of Fighters, man, I'm like, holy crap. Before they even combined forces, that series was like, man, I remember you. Go ahead.
I think that Capcom also puts out Marvel characters.
Yeah, and that's another one. That's another one. And like you said, man, as far as the action, as far as what they got going on in the background is good. But now I could appreciate, like, even if you look at King of Fighters now, even the background stuff that I think the art, you're an artist, the art direction, the arts and how they did the pixelation, it's aged well, man.
It did, and it's like, I like to go back and look at all that, and I still play those. Like I said, I'll always play the Art of Fighting 2. And like I said, I can remember, and I'm glad that Aladdin's Castle had that game on, like, it was like a 50, 60-inch TV. And when it was zoom in, and you would see the guys and the faces, like his jaws all busted and purple and the eyes blue. And like, it would just zoom into that, and it just zooms back. And I was like, man, that was cool. And it's like, the SNK game, King of Fighters, did the
Yeah.
same thing.
Yeah. And I always say, man, Metal Slug is always a classic, man. It aged well. I was gonna ask you, man. So, how did you feel? Do you have a SNK versus Capcom, and how did you feel once they did the collaboration?
SNK versus Capcom. I do have it in the collection, and I bought it for the Switch. And
Okay.
I always liked the fact that they did that collaboration, because it's like, okay, it's like, now I got my characters on this side. It's like, okay, now I got my characters on this side. It's like, now we can duke it out now. I mean, it was a raw balance. It was great. I've always loved the fact that they did that, and I hope they continue to do the rival, the rival games.
Even when they did the Marvel, it was on point. Another question: SNK characters versus the Capcom characters. Who you got? If they did a battle royal, who you got?
I think they've done that. Oh, see, I'm across the board, because there's Capcom characters I like Ryu, Chun-Li, and like, say, Morgan from Capcom. But then on the SNK side, there's Terry Bogard, there's Ma Sharanui, there's King. We thought that she was a guy at first, but she's like, well, it's like, she's a solid character I like to play with. Oh man, there's so many characters I haven't even played with yet. It's Yuri. Then there's the dad that he was the bad guy in the first game, and then on the Capcom side we got Blanca, and did I say Ryu?
Yeah, you know what? Come to think about it, man, I don't think SNK really didn't have too many like Blancas, right? They had the old guy that turned into a muscle dude, but they didn't really have like no creatures like that. Come to think about it, can you?
I don't think so. I think they were too elite. I think they were too elite for that.
Yeah. Got you. They're like, nah, we
ain't doing that.
On.
But they did have one character. I think it was like a female. She had like a long coat or something like that, and she would like kind of howl at the moon or something, like some kind of one of those games. I saw that, and man, they were I can't. That's a hard choice between SNK and Capcom, because I'll even like when I'm making my teams, I'll even mix that up. Like I'll put a Capcom and SNK character and another Capcom, or vice versa, and just go all in on that story.
Yeah. And then I guess we could speak to this. I know they still make Tekken. I think I'd have to research the last or the latest and greatest. But what do you think, man, when you look at 3D fighters? Because we've seen the transition from we're moving to 3D, and during this time period, we're moving to 3D. Okay, we're going to try to make all these games 3D games, like the Mortal Kombat's and whatnot, and it just didn't pan out. The 2.5Ds were good, and then even now the 2D games. What do you like better, man, the 2D or the 3D fighting games?
Nostalgia factor, I like the 2D, but the 3D is great also. But I think the reason we've reverted back is like, I think that everything is starting to kind of blend in and look the same.
Yeah.
And I think that the world could use a little bit of old school, and that's why we're going back to playing the Street Fighters and the Mortal Kombats. Not to take away from the 3D games they're making now, because like I said, I think they're great. But it's just a nostalgia factor when you're from that era. And I remember the first time I saw Street Fighter in the arcade, and then I remember getting Street Fighter at home on Super Nintendo. That was the game I had when it came with Super Mario World, and my grandma brought me Street Fighter 2. And I was the only one that had that game, so we were all going all in and going to school the next day. Thumbs are sore. You couldn't figure out why, but yeah, it's just, and I just want quick. I also want to say, like, I know that Sega got Street Fighter a little bit later, but I feel like Street Fighter on the Super Nintendo might have had the look slightly, but I feel like Sega had the better sound chip. It sounded a little closer to the arcade. It had more. It just had that extra oomph.
Yeah. But then with the Segas, the voices, man, damn.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean,
I was Team Sega. It's just like, it's just a little thing, it ain't too big. It's just like the voices. They'd always sound scratchy.
A little bit, but I like the way the music sounded on the Sega. It had more of a stereo, like a FM kind of sound or something. And that's like, that's closer to the arcade than the Super. Like the Super Nintendo was more orchestral, it seemed, where the Sega was it had more beat to it.
Had more beat, more synthesizer sounds. I think Super Nintendo had like samples and stuff. Yeah. So I'm gonna go with you, man. Time is proven to us. Time has shown us that the 2D is tried and true. I think as far as 3D, once we got to Killer Instinct, I was cool with that. And then when they tried to go all in, initially with the 32-bit, it was like a bit of a spectacle. Some of that stuff didn't age well. I give it to Tekken. They perfected in my mind. The later Tekkens on the PlayStation perfected it enough. But I'm like you, man. And when we talk about the Capcom versus even now with the combos and just everything is spectacular. They perfected 2D, 2.5D, and then the pixelated art. But to me, SNK's artwork, the way they did the art, it just aged well, man. I look at King of Fighters and I'm just like, whoa, this is still clean. Even the music.
When they brought in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, that was like the beginning of the 2.5D. Yeah. And it started to really look like, okay, like now we got the side scroller, but we got the backgrounds that look like it's really interactive when you're not interacting with it. But I think that was the reason why so many people favor Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I like the third one. I thought it was really good. But in SNK, Street Fighter Cross came out on 360. I have it. I'm going to post it. But it was Street Fighter Cross Tekken. That's what it was.
Tekken. Oh, Street Fighter Cross. Oh, okay. All right. I haven't checked that out. So that merged this whole episode. Okay, I'm going to have to check that out.
And I feel like they probably should have went further with that one, but at the same time, it was a solid game. It was a lot of fun to play. Good soundtrack, good visuals, good combo system. It wasn't hard to play at all, and it was just it's a good time. You know, I bought that game probably about 10 years back.
So I like my boy said. Shout out to Dermot from Jamaica. Mash it up. I like the mash it up. I like the mashups. But ladies and gentlemen, another great subject with your peoples right here, Gen Xers, you know. Like, subscribe, and then also we got merch. I'm over here rocking the 40-something gamers t-shirts. We got that. Be sure to check us out on the YouTubes as well. We're close to 2,000. Would love to get that. And also comment. Let us know. You know, we post up video games, retro stuff. Let us know what you want to see. Or if you know a game developer, you know somebody that may be a good fit for the show as a guest, let us know. And as always, you know, we got some parting words for you, words of wisdoms from Gen Xers. And Sharon, what's your parting words of wisdom before we get out of here?
You know, I like to say, eat well, keep exercising, have fun gaming. I've been working on a little bit of artwork lately, so like maybe you'll see that every now and again. Like I got something right here. This is an older piece.
We go. Oh, there we go. Look at that, y'all. Look at that. Look at that. That got a little Oz vibe to it. Look at that. Look at that.
But yeah, so like I say, have fun. And I also want to say, be creative. Be creative. I mean, AI is a great tool, but you know, there's nothing that's going to be more powerful than the brain. You know, so it's like, yeah, I feel like I'm in a new place right now. That place I hadn't been in a while, and I've been working on a lot of artwork, so it's like, and I've been enjoying it, so like, yeah, so I say be creative, exercise, get sunshine, do your artwork, stay healthy.
Yeah, artwork myself, but yeah, no, be creative. I'm glad that you say that, because right now, like, you know, we're in our 40s, we got age and experience, so now like I've transitioned from hip hop artist to now musical artists. And as with anything with AI, you know, the discussion now is AI going to replace musicians. AI cannot emote. AI cannot, like you said, it knows a rhythm, it knows a template, and it doesn't, like with the humans, we can decide. We're like, hey, I want to put a purple dot here. Or, hey, I want this beat to be off. But yeah, be creative, man. Y'all be creative. And also check us out. Check out Sharon's art. Check out my music. My hip hop persona is Furious, Furious. My music persona is my full name, Marquivas Nias. Just released the track, Hope in High Places. Shout out to London, Working. Shout out to Budapest. And shout out to New York. I see y'all listening. And right now we're at 211 listeners. Let's get that up. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, myself and my homeboy since 1994, Harrington, we are signing off for 40-something gamers. Thank you.